I've had an allergy to sunny days for as long as I can remember, and on yet another bright sunlit morning, I got fired because of a mistake I supposedly made, but something felt off. My gut wouldn't let it go. Had I really made that mistake? And why was Abby, the jealous coworker, suddenly being so nice to me? Why did Albert, my supervisor, rush everything and push to get me out so fast? Once I started digging, I began to see the truth, and that's when I decided I was going to make them regret it. Everything started 1 week ago on a Monday morning. The sun was triggering my allergies again, and I could feel my focus slipping. I could have moved to a spot where the sunlight didn't hit me, but I didn't want to bother anyone. So, like always, I reached into my bag to take my allergy medicine when Abby walked up. "Good morning, Malia," she said. She was the kind of woman whose bad intentions were obvious from a mile away. I knew she couldn't stand anyone more successful than her. Still, aside from a few minor arguments, nothing major had ever happened between us. We'd worked at the same company for years, after all. We had to learn how to coexist. Abby's smile didn't reach her eyes. It never did. She leaned a little closer than necessary, like we were old friends sharing a secret instead of coworkers surviving the same open office ecosystem. "You look a little off," she said, voice syrupy. "Allergies?" I kept my expression neutral. "Just the usual, oh no," she sighed, like she was personally devastated on my behalf. "That's awful. Do you want to switch desks? I can talk to facilities, or actually I have an extra set of blinds in my drawer. I could bring them over." The offer was too polished. Too fast. Abby didn't do favors unless they came with receipts. "I'm fine," I said, finally finding my medicine and shaking one pill into my palm. "I just need this." Abby's gaze flicked to the pill, just a split second, but I caught it. Then she smiled again. "I'm glad you take care of yourself," she said. "We need you at 100% today." That last part landed wrong, not because it was unkind, but because it sounded scheduled, like she knew today mattered. "What's today?" I asked lightly. Abby feigned surprise. "Oh, you didn't hear? Albert's doing a quick review of the vendor renewal files. He wants everything organized before lunch." Vendor renewal files. My stomach tightened for reasons I couldn't immediately name. Not fear exactly, more like a quiet alarm bell. Vendor renewals weren't new to me. I'd been handling them for years, but Albert didn't usually do a quick review. Albert did slow, bureaucratic pressure. Albert did calendar invites with 10 attendees and the word compliance in bold. A quick review before lunch felt like someone trying to outrun something. Abby tapped the corner of my desk with one manicured finger. "Anyway, I'll let you work, but seriously, if you need anything, I'm here." Then she walked away, heels clicking like punctuation. I watched her go, then swallowed my medicine dry like a barbarian, because the office water cooler was always somehow empty when you needed it most. For a moment, I stared at my computer screen, trying to blink my focus back into place. Sunlight poured through the windows like it was proud of itself. My eyes watered. My nose itched. The world looked slightly too bright, like someone had cranked up the exposure on my life. And then my email pinged. From Albert Turner, subject: "Quick sync, 10:15 a.m., no greeting, no context. Just a calendar invite with a single line in the description. Bring the Turner and Lane renewal file today." Turner and Lane was one of our biggest vendors. High value, high visibility, high risk. I exhaled slowly and opened the shared drive folder where I kept everything meticulously organized: contracts, approvals, compliance notes, email threads. The folder was there, but the contents felt wrong. A document I didn't recognize sat right at the top, as if it had been dropped there overnight. T&L renewal final approval. MHARLOW, my name, my initials. My stomach went cold. I clicked it. The document was an approval record, my approval record, stating I had authorized a change in payment terms that I absolutely positively had not authorized. It wasn't even subtle. The new terms were wildly out of step with our standard structure. Anyone with half a brain would question it, but my digital signature was there. My employee ID, time stamp, and a neat little checkbox that said, "Reviewed and approved by Malia Harlow." I stared at it until my eyes burned, and for a second, I wondered if my allergy medicine had hit harder than usual. Because I couldn't understand how this existed. I didn't remember approving anything like this. I didn't even remember seeing this document. I opened the version history. My pulse climbed. The file had been created early this morning, before I even arrived, and yet it listed me as the creator. That made no sense. I hadn't been online that early. I lived 20 minutes away. I didn't wake up and approve million-dollar vendor terms as part of my morning skincare routine. Then another ping. From Abby subject, you good. I didn't reply, I couldn't. My hands had gone numb at the fingertips like my nervous system was trying to uninstall itself. I checked the access logs. The history showed that my account had accessed the file, edited it, approved it, and then, like a cherry on top, sent an email to Albert confirming it. I opened my sent folder. There it was. A clean professional email from me. Hi Albert, reviewed and approved the final terms for Turner and Lane. Looks good to proceed. Mailia, it had my signature line, my title, my phone extension. Everything. Except it wasn't mine. My writing was never that neat. My writing had personality. It had human flaws. It had at least one unnecessary dash. This email was too clean, like someone impersonating a professional woman, the way a teenager impersonates an adult in a school play. I checked the timestamp. Sent at 7:12 a.m. I wasn't even awake at 7:12 a.m. unless my allergies were staging a coup. I leaned back in my chair and forced myself to breathe. Okay. There were two possibilities. I had done this somehow and didn't remember. Someone had done it using my credentials. My gut didn't hesitate. It picked option 2 like it had been waiting for the question. I glanced up across the office. Abby was at her desk, typing. She looked calm, too calm. She glanced over, caught my eyes, and gave me a small, supportive nod. Like, you got this. Like, we're on the same team. Like, I'm not the reason your stomach is currently trying to crawl up your throat. At 10:10, I gathered the folder anyway, my real one, printed copies, supporting emails, and walked to the conference room. The hallway felt longer than usual, like the building itself wanted extra time to watch me walk toward whatever was waiting. Albert was already there. So was someone from HR, Mavis, the calm-eyed kind who could deliver bad news the way other people ordered lunch. And a man from compliance I barely knew. Elliot, I think. His tie was too tight, and he wore the expression of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Albert didn't stand when I walked in. He didn't smile. He just gestured to the chair across from him like I was an appointment. Sit, he said. I sat. Mavis folded her hands. Mailia, this is a formal review meeting regarding a vendor renewal approval that was processed under your credentials. My heart hammered, but my face stayed composed. Okay, I said carefully. I saw the document. I didn't approve that. Albert leaned forward slightly. Your signature is on it. It isn't my signature, I said. It's my digital stamp. That's not the same thing. Elliot from compliance cleared his throat. The system indicates your account created, edited, and approved the terms. It also indicates you sent a confirmation email. I slid my printed folder across the table. Then we need to look at access logs and login history, because I did not do this. Albert didn't touch the folder. He tapped the table once like he was bored already. Mailia, he said, I'm going to be direct. This vendor is critical. You know that the terms you approved put the company at risk, and given your role, this isn't a simple mistake. A mistake implies I did it, I said. I'm saying I didn't. Mavis's tone stayed soft. Are you suggesting your account was compromised? Yes, I said instantly. Or misused, or, Albert cut in, or you're deflecting. The room went quiet. I felt it then, the shape of it. Not a review, a decision. They weren't here to investigate. They were here to close a file. Mailia, Mavis said gently, we have to consider the integrity of the process. And because this was an approval action, the responsibility is attached to the credentials used. So anyone can do anything on my account and I'm just done, I asked, keeping my voice level. Albert's eyes didn't flicker. You are responsible for securing your access. That line, that exact line was a corporate guillotine disguised as policy. I looked at Elliot. Do you have the login location history, IP addresses, device IDs? He hesitated. Albert answered for him. It won't change what happened. But it would change who did it, I said. Albert leaned back, lips pressing into a thin line. Malia, I'm not going to drag this out. Effective immediately, your employment is being terminated. There it was. No investigation, no technical verification, no chance to defend myself beyond 3 sentences. Just done. For half a second, my vision blurred not from tears, but from sunlight flaring through the glass wall behind Albert, like the universe had a sense of timing. I breathed in slowly through my nose, forcing my voice to stay steady. Can I ask one question? I said. Mavis nodded. Albert didn't. Why the rush? I asked, looking directly at Albert. If you believe in policy so much, why not follow the full process? Albert's smile appeared quick and empty. Because the company can't afford delay, I stood. I didn't slam my hands on the table. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't give them the satisfaction of drama. I gathered my folder, even though no one had opened it, and I said the only thing that felt powerful in that moment. Okay, I said softly. Then I'll afford it, Albert blinked, like he didn't understand. But Abby did, because when I walked out of that room, I saw her standing by the hallway corner with a coffee in her hand, pretending she just happened to be there. Our eyes met. She gave me a sympathetic little frown, and behind it, buried under the fake concern, I saw something else. Relief, like the trap had finally snapped shut. I spent that night in my apartment with tissues everywhere, my allergies still humming under my skin, and my laptop open to a blank document titled, What I Know, What I Can Prove, What I Need. I listed facts. I did not approve the terms. My account did. The approval happened before I arrived at work. The email was sent at 7:12 a.m. Albert rushed the termination. Abby was suddenly helpful. Abby knew about the vendor review before I did. Then I wrote a line underneath, bolded, like a promise. Someone used my name to move me out of the way. And once I framed it like that, the rest fell into place with frightening clarity. Albert didn't want me gone because of a mistake. Albert wanted my job. Not just my job, my position. Because my position controlled vendor approvals, contract structures, renewals, and the internal checks that prevented exactly this kind of manipulation. If you wanted to slot someone unqualified into that role, say, a son with the right last name and the wrong experience, you needed the current person out fast. And you needed a reason that sounded clean. A policy-based reason. A reason that made me look incompetent, or dishonest, or careless. Something the company could point to and say, we had no choice. I closed my laptop and stared into the dark. My allergy had always felt like a weakness. But it wasn't my weakness they used. It was my predictability. They knew on sunny days I'd be distracted. They knew I'd take medicine. They knew I'd keep my head down and not cause scenes. They built the trap around who I was. So I made a new decision. I wasn't going to beg for my job back. I wasn't going to send emotional emails. I wasn't going to post cryptic quotes online like, karma is real, and call it healing. I was going to do the one thing they didn't expect. I was going to prove it. Quietly, carefully, methodically. And then I was going to make them regret using my name like a disposable tool. Because if Albert and Abby thought firing me ended the story, they didn't know me at all. I didn't sleep much. Not because I was spiraling, though I absolutely was, but because my brain had flipped into the one mode it knows when something smells wrong. Inventory mode. If you've ever watched someone quietly pack a suitcase after they've decided they're leaving a relationship, you know the vibe. No yelling, no speeches, just checking drawers. That was me, except the relationship was my career, and the suitcase was evidence. By 6:30 a.m., I had coffee, tissues, and a list of questions that kept getting sharper the more I stared at them. If my account approved that document at 7:12 a.m., where did that login originate? If it wasn't my device, what device was it? If the system recorded a creator, why did it say my name when I wasn't online? And most importantly, if Albert was so confident, why did he rush the firing like the building was on fire? Because he was racing something. He was racing the truth before it had time to put on shoes. I opened my laptop and logged into the employee portal out of habit. Access denied. Of course. They'd cut me off the way companies cut cables. Clean, quick, like you're not a human being who still needs to download a pay stub. I sat back and stared at the screen until my eyes went dry. Okay, so I wouldn't get proof through the company. I'd get proof around it. That meant one thing: I needed someone inside. Someone who still had access to the logs Albert had refused to waste time looking at. I scrolled through my contacts. Names, numbers, dead ends. Then I paused on one: Elliot Compliance. He wasn't my friend. But he also wasn't Albert. And yesterday, when I'd asked for device history and IP data, Elliot had hesitated. That hesitation was a crack. Cracks are where truth gets in. I wrote him an email from my personal account. I kept it short. No drama, no accusations, no "you owe me." Just facts. Elliot, I'm requesting a copy of the access trail for the Turner and Lane approval file. Device ID/login timestamps. I'm not asking you to take sides. I'm asking you to confirm what the system shows. Malia, I hovered over send. Then I added one more line, softer. If this was reviewed properly, it should be simple to prove. And then I hit send. My stomach clenched the moment it left my outbox because I knew what I was doing. I was poking the wall of a machine that had already tried to crush me. Machines don't like being questioned. Neither do managers who think they're machines. I waited. 10 minutes. Nothing. 30. Still nothing. I was about to close my laptop when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. One text. Elliot, not safe to email. Can you meet? My breath caught. I typed back. Where? His reply came almost instantly. Cafe across from Redwood Plaza. 12:30. Don't bring anyone. Redwood Plaza wasn't near the office, which meant he wasn't meeting me on company territory, which meant he was nervous. That made two of us. By noon, the sun was blazing like it had personal beef with me. I wore sunglasses like I was trying to hide from paparazzi, except the only person chasing me was my own immune system. I took my allergy medicine in the cafe bathroom because I wasn't letting Abby's helpfulness get anywhere near my body again. Then I sat near the back, facing the door. At 12:37, Elliot walked in. He looked different without fluorescent office lighting. Younger, more human, still anxious. He ordered a coffee he didn't seem interested in drinking, then slid into the seat across from me. We didn't do small talk. He leaned forward and spoke quietly. I can't give you anything official, he said. I'm not supposed to talk about internal logs. I understand, I said. He studied my face like he was measuring whether I was going to explode. I didn't, so he continued. But I can tell you this, he said. The login that created the approval record wasn't from your usual device. My skin went cold. It wasn't, I whispered. He shook his head. Different device signature, different location, still authenticated as you. Can you tell me the location? I asked carefully. He hesitated. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and slid a folded napkin onto the table. On it, written in pen, were three things. Time, 7:08 a.m. device, unknown Windows machine network, internal guest Wi-Fi. I stared at the words until they felt like they were burning into my brain. Internal guest Wi-Fi. That was the office. And 7:08 a.m.? That was before most people arrived, except people who wanted to be alone in the building, except people who had keys, or seniority, or both. I looked up. So someone did this from inside the office. Elliot's jaw tightened. It points that way. Then why didn't you show that in the meeting? My voice shook despite my effort. He flinched like I'd slapped him with the truth. Because Albert didn't request it, he said. He ended the meeting before we got to technical verification. I let out a small, humorless laugh. So he fired me without checking the one thing that would confirm whether I did it. Elliot didn't laugh back. That told me everything. I leaned forward. Elliot, does Albert have access to the building that early? Elliot's eyes flicked away. That was basically a yes. Then he added quietly, there's more. My throat tightened. What? Elliot's voice dropped. The approval file wasn't just created under your name. It was created using a template that you don't use. I blinked. How do you know what template I use? He gave me a look like he regretted being helpful. In compliance, we see patterns, he said. We notice who uses what forms. Your approvals are consistent. This one wasn't. I swallowed. Whose pattern was it? Elliot didn't answer immediately. Then, with reluctance that looked almost like shame, he said, Abby's. My heartbeat spiked so hard my vision flashed. Abby, of course. I stared down at the napkin again, suddenly seeing it differently. This wasn't random. This wasn't a hacker in another country. This was personal. This was office-level petty, weaponized into something career-ending. I looked up. Can you prove it's Abby? Elliot exhaled. Not with what I'm willing to risk, but he paused. There was also a badge entry that morning. Someone accessed the floor at 6:58. My hands tightened around my coffee cup. Who? I asked. Elliot looked at me, and for a second, I saw the exact moment he crossed an invisible line. Then he said it. Albert Turner. The cafe noise blurred. Espresso machine. Laughter. A spoon clinking. All of it felt far away. Albert had been in the office before 7 o'clock a.m. The approval happened at 7:08. And Abby's template was used. They didn't just frame me. They did it together. I forced my voice to stay calm. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Elliot's eyes were tired. Because if this goes the wrong way, it doesn't stop with you. It becomes a method, and then it's just whoever they want next. I stared at him. For the first time since the firing, I felt something other than panic. I felt clarity. Okay, I said. Thank you. Elliot's shoulders loosened slightly, like he'd been holding his breath for a week. Then he added one more thing, almost as an afterthought. They're already moving someone into your role. My stomach sank, even though I already knew. Who? Elliot hesitated again. Then, Albert's son, Ethan, he's coming in as interim until they restructure. There it was. The motive served up clean. Albert didn't want me gone because I was careless. Albert wanted me gone because I was in the way. Elliot stood up like he'd stayed too long. He slid the napkin a fraction closer to me. I wasn't here, he said. I didn't see you, I replied. He nodded once and left without drinking his coffee, which, honestly, felt like the most accurate symbol of the entire company. When I got home, I taped the napkin into my notebook like it was a sacred artifact. Then I wrote a timeline. Monday 6:58 a.m., Albert badge entry 7:08 a.m., my account used on guest Wi-Fi 7:12 a.m., fake email sent from me. I stared at the timeline until my eyes started to water again, not from sadness. From sunlight because, of course, the universe has jokes. I wiped my face and smiled without humor, okay, I murmured to myself. Now I know when. I underlined it. Now I need the how because guest Wi-Fi plus Abby template was strong, but corporate doesn't collapse on strong. Corporate collapses on undeniable, on paper trails, on simple, unarguable facts. So I made a new list titled, What I Need to Win. Proof Abby touched the file or sent the email. Proof Albert directed it or benefited directly from the firing. Proof that the process was bypassed intentionally. Then I stared at point 2 benefited directly. That was the key because if Albert's son really was stepping into my role, there would be records. Offer letters, emails, and people talk. The trick is getting them to talk to you. I opened my contacts again. This time I didn't look for compliance. I looked for someone who loved gossip more than loyalty, and I found her. Dana, facilities coordinator. Dana knew everything. Not because she was sneaky, because she had eyes, ears, and the master keys to every room in the building. I texted her, Hey Dana, random question. Was anyone in early on Monday? Like, really early? Dana, lol, why me? Just trying to piece something together. Dana, you okay? I will be. Dana, Albert was, and Abby, don't ask how I know. My pulse jumped. I typed, How do you know? She replied with one sentence that made me sit up straight. Dana, because Abby asked me to unlock the small conference room at 6:50 and told me it was for Albert. I stared at the screen. Small conference room. 6:50. For Albert. That explained how they could do it quietly. A closed room, no wandering eyes, guest Wi-Fi, a laptop. I swallowed. Then I typed the most important question of the night. Did she sign anything? Dana replied. Yep, visitor log clipboard. She signed your name, my breath stopped. She signed my name, not digitally, physically. Sloppy human arrogance. The kind that thinks, who's going to check? I stared at that text message until my hands started shaking. Because that wasn't just a clue. That was the kind of proof that can end careers. And Abby had just walked right into it. I set my phone down slowly and whispered to the empty room, "Okay." Then I smiled, not because I was happy, because for the first time, the story had turned. They thought they'd erased me, but Abby had left fingerprints and Albert had left motive. Now all I needed was the one thing they couldn't control, a proper review. That night, I drafted a message to the company's ethics hotline portal, the external one they bragged about in training videos. The one no one uses until they're desperate. I didn't send it yet, because I wasn't going to go in with emotion. I was going to go in with a folder so clean and so calm that nobody could call me unstable. I titled the document, Formal Request for Investigation, Credential Misuse and Process Bypass, and right under it, I wrote my opening line. I am not requesting sympathy. I am requesting verification. Then I paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard because I realized something else. If Abby had signed my name in a visitor log, that meant there was a piece of paper in that building right now. A physical record, with her handwriting and my name, which meant tomorrow morning there was a chance it would disappear. Unless I got to it first. I looked at the clock, then at my sunglasses on the counter, then at the allergy medicine. And I made a decision. Tomorrow I wasn't going to beg. Tomorrow, I was going to walk back toward the place that threw me out, and I was going to retrieve the one page they didn't think would matter because if I had that page, if I had Abby's handwriting, Albert Turner's policy would finally do what it was supposed to do, destroy the person who broke it. And this time, it wouldn't be me. The next morning, the sun came up like it had something to prove. Then I grabbed my notebook, the one with Abby's helpful mornings circled in red, and headed to Redwood Plaza. Redwood Plaza's lobby had a cafe, a security desk, and a stream of people who looked important enough to walk anywhere without being questioned. I blended in by doing the oldest trick in the modern workplace. I carried a folder. It's amazing what people assume when you hold paper confidently. I walked up to the security desk with a neutral face and a tired voice. "Hi," I said. "I'm here for a meeting with facilities. Dana asked me to sign in." The guard barely looked up. "Name?" I gave my legal name, spelled correctly, and slid my ID across. He typed, printed a badge, and handed it over, and just like that, I was inside the building that had thrown me out, wearing a sticker that said visitor like it was a personality. The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. My heart kept trying to sprint ahead of me, but I forced my body to stay steady. I wasn't here to cause a scene. I was here for one page. One sheet of paper on a clipboard, sitting somewhere dumb and forgotten, signed by someone arrogant enough to think she'd never be questioned. Dana met me by the service hallway near facilities. She wore a headset, carried a clipboard, and looked like she'd seen enough office drama to qualify for combat pay. "Girl," she hissed the moment she saw me. "You are either very brave or very unwell." "Both," I whispered back. Dana's eyes flicked to my visitor badge. "Okay, we have 2 minutes, maybe 3. "You weren't kidding about the log?" I asked. Dana shook her head. "Abby signed in, and she signed your name." Like she was doing a worksheet, my stomach tightened. "Where is it?" Dana turned and walked briskly. I followed, trying not to look like I was following. We reached a small side alcove where a cheap folding table sat under a wall-mounted sanitizer dispenser. On the table, a binder, a pen on a string, and the clipboard. Dana flipped the clipboard open with the casualness of someone opening a menu. "There," she said. I leaned in. My name was written in pen, but it wasn't my handwriting. The M looped too hard. The H had a weird sharp angle, and the date and time, 6:50 a.m., sat beside it like a confession. Below that, written in a different pen stroke, reason, meeting W/Albert. I stared at it like it might vanish if I blinked. "You can't take it," Dana whispered. "They'll notice the sheet is gone." "I don't need to take it," I whispered back. I pulled my phone out and took 3 photos close up, wide shot with the clipboard and table visible, and another with the building's signage in frame. Then I did what every corporate training video tells you not to do. I sent the pictures to myself immediately. Dana exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since Monday. "You got it?" she asked. "I got it," I said. Dana's mouth tightened. "Then leave, before you run into Abby and your day turns into a soap opera." I turned to go. And of course the universe, being the messy coworker it is, had other plans. Abby appeared at the far end of the hallway. She froze when she saw me. Her eyes flicked to my visitor badge, then to Dana. Then back to me, and in that second I watched the math happen behind her face. "How is she here? What does she know? What did Dana show her?" Abby smiled. That fake, too polished smile. "Oh my God," she said, voice loud enough to perform innocence for the walls. "Malia, I didn't know you were coming in today." I returned her smile, small, controlled. "Neither did I said. Abby's gaze slid to the clipboard on the table. It lasted half a second, but I saw it and she saw that I saw it. Dana shifted, tense. Abby stepped closer, lowering her voice like we were sharing a secret. "This is a lot," she said softly. "I'm really sorry about what happened. I tried to tell Albert you're not the type to be careless, but you know how he is." My stomach almost laughed, because Abby was doing what she always did, rewriting the story in real time to see if I'd accept it. I tilted my head. "Funny, you knew about Albert's quick review before I did." Abby's smile faltered. "Did I?" she asked, too quickly. "I mean, people talk, it's normal." "I'm sure," I said, a beat of silence. Her voice became sweeter. "You look pale. Are you okay? Allergies again?" That word, allergies, came out like she was touching a bruise to see if it still hurt. I leaned in slightly, keeping my tone calm and conversational. "I'm okay," I said. "I've learned something about my allergies." Abby blinked. "Oh, sunny days don't make me weak," I said. "They make me careful." Her throat moved, one small swallow. Then she smiled again, bigger this time, like she could outsmile reality. "Well," she said brightly, "I hope everything works out for you." "Me too," I replied. And then I walked past her. No drama, because I didn't need one. Not when I had her handwriting. That afternoon, I filed the ethics report, not emotional. I attached the timeline, badge entry, guest Wi-Fi login, sent email timestamp, Elliot's confirmation written, as compliance indicated the login originated from an internal guest network on site. Dana's information framed, as facilities' sign-in records appear inconsistent with my presence. The photos of the visitor log page a formal request. Independent technical verification of device IDs, login IP history, and file template origin. My subject line was boring on purpose. Request for verification. Credential misuse plus process bypass, Turner and Lane approval. Then I sent a separate message to HR, not to argue, but to document. "I am requesting an appeal meeting based on new verification evidence and an incomplete process." I didn't ask for my job back. I asked for the truth, because the truth is harder to deny without sounding corrupt. 2 days passed and the company stayed silent until Thursday morning. I got a call from an unfamiliar number. "Miss Harlow," a woman said, calm, professional, the voice of someone who's seen every version of human denial. "This is Sonia Patel from the Ethics and Risk Committee. We received your report. We'd like to conduct an interview." My pulse lifted, but my voice stayed steady. "Yes, we'll also be conducting a technical review," she continued. "And we'd like you to attend a meeting on Monday at 9 a.m., 1 week after it started." I let out a slow breath. "Okay," I said. "I'll be there." Monday came with the kind of sunlight that felt like a spotlight. I wore a neutral outfit, no loud colors, no flashy anything. Not because I was trying to disappear, but because I wanted them to have nothing to critique except the facts. The conference room wasn't Horizon this time. It was Cedar, smaller, more private. And when I walked in, the seating arrangement told me everything. Albert wasn't at the head of the table. He was on the side, so was Abby. And across from them sat Sonia Patel and 2 people I didn't recognize, one from IT security, one from legal. Elliot was there too. He didn't look at me long, but when he did, he gave the smallest nod. A crack widening. Albert tried to look relaxed. He failed. His hand kept tapping the table like it was counting down to something. Abby's face was composed, but her eyes were too bright. She kept swallowing. Sonia began, voice even. "We're here to review the vendor approval incident that resulted in Miss Harlow's termination," she said. "This is not a disciplinary meeting. This is a verification meeting." Albert smiled. "We already verified." Sonia cut him off without raising her voice. "We verified differently." Silence. The IT security specialist slid a report across the table. "On Monday at 7:08 a.m., he said, Miss Harlow's account accessed the Turner and Lane approval file using a device that does not match her registered workstation or personal devices." Albert's jaw tightened. The specialist continued. "The access originated from the building's internal guest network. Additionally, the file template used matches a template associated with Abby Lane's prior submissions, not Miss Harlow's usual template." Abby flinched at the sound of her own name. Sonia glanced at her. "Miss Lane, do you have an explanation for why your template pattern appears in a document created under Miss Harlow's credentials?" Abby blinked fast. I don't know what that means." Legal spoke next. "We also reviewed the facility's sign-in log. Dana wasn't in the room, but the photos were." Sonia placed printed copies on the table. Abby's handwriting. My name, the time, the reason. Abby stared at it like it was a snake that had learned cursive. Albert leaned forward sharply. "That doesn't prove anything. People sign incorrectly all the time." Sonia's tone stayed calm. "It proves someone attempted to enter a meeting under Miss Harlow's identity at 6:50 a.m. Albert's tapping stopped. The IT specialist added, almost gently, "And that aligns with Mr. Turner's badge entry at 6:58 a.m. Albert's face went still, like his expression had been paused. Sonia turned to him. "Mr. Turner, why were you in the office at 6:58 a.m. on a day you later described as urgent and time-sensitive?" Albert's smile returned thin. "I come in early sometimes," he said. "To work." Sonia nodded. "Understood. Then you'll have no issue explaining why the approval occurred 10 minutes after your arrival, using Miss Harlow's credentials, on a network accessible in the building." Albert opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. And for the first time, the man who had fired me with policy is policy looked like he'd finally met a policy he couldn't charm. Abby's voice cracked. "I didn't do this." Sonia didn't react. "Then help us understand how your handwriting is on the visitor log as Miss Harlow." Abby's eyes darted to Albert. That glance was the loudest thing she'd said all week. Albert's voice sharpened. "Abby is under stress. Let's not." Legal cut in. "Mr. Turner, please don't speak for her." Abby's composure broke in small pieces like ice cracking. "I was told to," she blurted. Albert went rigid. Sonia's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Told to by whom?" Abby hesitated, one beat too long. Then she said, barely audible, "Albert." The room didn't explode. It didn't need to. Truth doesn't require volume, it requires air. And suddenly the air was full of it. Albert's face flushed. "That's ridiculous. She's lying to protect herself." Sonia looked at Abby, then at Albert, then at the report. "We don't need to rely on emotion," she said. "We have logs, badge entries, template matches, and a process bypass." She turned to me. "Miss Harlow, your termination was executed without complete verification," she said. "Based on this review, we're overturning that decision immediately." My throat tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "Thank you," Sonia continued, looking at Albert now. "Mr. Turner, you will be placed on administrative leave effective immediately pending further investigation." Albert's mouth twitched. "You can't." Legal's voice was flat. "We can." Abby stared at the table, shaking. Sonia's tone softened slightly, still firm but human. "Miss Lane," she said, "you'll be required to submit a full statement. HR will follow up regarding next steps." Abby nodded quickly, like a frightened kid caught with a stolen test answer. Albert didn't look at me once, and even then, his eyes weren't angry. They were calculating, like he was still trying to find a way to win a game that had already ended. 2 weeks later, the company made an announcement. Corporate never admits the story, just the outcome. Leadership changes. process improvements, commitment to integrity. Albert Turner's employment was terminated. Abby resigned before her final HR meeting. Or maybe she was asked to. Those details were never made public. They rarely are. Albert's son, Ethan, quietly disappeared from the org chart like he'd never existed. And me, I didn't return. I was reinstated with a formal apology, my record cleared, and a new offer that came with a different tone than before. Not "we're letting you back in." More like, "we realize what happens when you're not here." They offered me Albert's position. Not as revenge, as repair. I accepted, not because I needed to prove anything to Albert, but because I'd learned something that week. You don't win in corporate by being loud. You win by being undeniable. On my first morning in the new role, the sun poured through the windows exactly the way it always did. My allergies stirred like they were warming up. I put on my sunglasses, sat down, and opened my calendar. 9 a.m. policy review. Access controls plus approval flow. I smiled to myself. Just a little, because the system that had been used to erase me was about to be rebuilt to protect the next person. And the best part, this time, when the sunlight hit my desk, I didn't flinch. I adjusted the blinds and I got to work.